Yeah, sure.
No problem. I'll try not to say anything really embarrassing. Okay, so obviously they did not have it set up for a monitor because I brought some cool stuff as well. Inside this, assuming that we get to work, we have, why don't everybody come on up, get close. That way it'll be easy for me to open things up and show people stuff. There we go, come on.
Andy, what one student is from? Oh, still spot up here,
I hope that was somebody else's machine, not mine. Okay, so, hello, do you want to wake up now? I always love the tablets like this. I don't know anything, I'm stupid. Yeah, technology, we're now beholden to it. Okay, we're up. Okay, so, hi, I'm Mike Pondsmith. First of all, you guys have probably wondered if I'm John Robots, and a lot of you are recognized as people who are members of the Kickstarter. I want to first thank you guys for being ridiculously patient, because we are banging it, and we really appreciate your cutting us that slack. One reason I wanted to hold this meeting was to get everybody in one place so we could actually talk, because unfortunately Kickstarter is a terrible way to communicate with anybody, as we're finding out. Basically, there's a couple problems with it. When we started this, we had a lot of stuff that we want to do, and most to all of it is done with the exception of a couple of really interesting things, and right now the book is in layout. Our poor overworked, not layout, in editing. Our poor overworked editor, Fran, is in fact banging on it between that and also working on a project which is The Witcher, which came in on top of this. One of our interesting problems is we have been hammered by kind of overscheduling and too many things happening at once. When we started, it was me, one project, that was it. And then we got what I thought was going to be, hey, I'll go over and check out things in Poland, we'll sign a contract, I won't be doing anything there except saying, yeah, go ahead, make a Cyclone game. Next thing I knew, I was flying about every 5 to 6 months over to Poland and spending weeks there working on Cyberpunk 2077. So for that, I apologize. I had no idea I was getting myself into that. Some of the stuff I want to hand around to you, though, are things that you really couldn't see in the KS, because Kickstarter is a bloody pain to show people actually what you're doing at any given time. If you notice, okay, we build this thing in Quark, ancient Quark, and then we have to convert it over from Quark into not just a straight PDF, but an older archaic form that was around in the late 90s to get it out of the Quark we had. Then we had to take it out of that, take it to another PDF format. But I was hoping we'd be able to post two PDFs. For example, this is unedited right now, The Rivals. Pass it around, take a look at it. It's one of the adventures. And we had to take that and we have to break all the PDF files down into individual page files to put up Kickstarter. But then they put a limit on how much we can post on Kickstarter. So I thought, hey, I'll just put it up on our site instead. And I did that and found that it also choked our site. So we've been having to kind of do it in dribs and drabs, which is a screaming pain, but it is wrapped up. And you can see, taking a look at some of this is from our own press. And, for example, Court Bad Blues, one of the adventures, and just pass them around, guys. And the thing we've recently been doing is running some stuff simply so we can actually get past the choke factor. For example, this is some of the anime characters' background. Let's pass it around too. And we've also been setting up and doing an awful lot of just information and character stuff. And again, pass some stuff around there. Look. Sorry.
It's okay, sorry. Can't reach much further.
Okay. So we also have, happily enough, got almost everything else settled because of that. So for example, as you'll see today, I dragged along dice, for example. 6 months ago, Q Workshop finished our dice. So we have them all there, and I will once again send them around. These are the dice that we set up that you guys helped us put together. And again, let me break them up again. Hey Jay, why don't you come on back over here? Jay's hiding out.
Actually, I just have you back in case anyone tries to kill you. So.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
The back is like,
Yeah, he's a coward.
You're there if you tried to run.
I don't
You
run.
guys aren't going to run. You guys are too cool about that. So. I'll just sit
Okay,
back
here,
then.
show her some dice. Come on, quit being useless. Show them some dice. Okay, we also, so we have dice, we have patches, we have t-shirts, we have the map, we have the referee screen, we have the adventures, we have the huge maps, we have, let's see, is there anything else I left out? The patches.
I haven't even seen that stuff.
So basically, everything with the exception of the core book is ready to rock and roll. We thought when we got it, it would be simple for us to send it out, and then we looked at what it would cost to ship it all out individually, and then send the book. We can't really afford that at that point. That's one reason we had to hold off. But we have the core, and everything is there, and we basically it's sitting in the warehouse while we can get a chance to go bang it out. But while we were getting everything laid out and settled, everybody can take a look at a bunch more stuff. We also it's trying to do TV. I don't know why it's trying to do TV. One of the other important things why we couldn't ship everything out was we were setting up for miniatures as well. Well, feel free to read. You're going to find a lot of typos in there right now because, like I said, Fran is doing typo stuff as we speak. No, I would like you to stop doing that. Okay. But the other thing, which we're wrapping up now, is we are doing minis. So, it's a little hard to see, but we finally got somebody who could do the minis that we needed to do. So this is passing around some 3Ds of the various types that we're doing. These are going to be in plastic. They're going to be molded for color, and we're looking at getting decal sheets put together for them. And they turn out to be really super. We didn't just do the mecha, we also did some really, really cool critters as well. So that's a fog hunter there, and that's a gunfark. And we also have a couple of the cute ones. What we try to do is get a lot of personality in them, and the designers we got finally, thanks to our new art director, have done a lot of experience work. So we're actually hoping to get something wrapped on that and actually have miniatures out, probably as with the whole goal to get those miniatures back by October. So that's what we're banging for right now. Wait a minute, what did you just say? What do you mean it's not playing? Stop it. Excuse me a second. There we go. There's our mauler. So if you guys know how to run a tablet like that, what I'll do is I'll set up. You guys can kind of slosh through it a bit. Yes, just slide it. Take a look.
Put it together.
We also expanded the bestiary, and one of the cool things we also did was we, in the design, made the mecha a lot more personable. Part of this was the fact that over time, one reason I did this was I really wanted to give these things more of a personality other than just war game vehicles. So the analogy that I use is you're basically dealing with something that is like a large but not terribly intelligent dragon that you control but not really well. Mektons have intelligence, but it's an incredibly low level, kind of about a dumb horse level. And one of the goals you have is to, like if you have a really smart suit, all the suits have now stats. They have stats that they operate in. They have rough consciousness. They have quirks. They have things that you learn about your suit. And so if you get a Mauler, the first time it may be a certain way, but that Mauler gets destroyed and you get another Mauler, it's not the same Mauler. It has distinct qualities that are different, that are structurally different. But it also, because of that, carries a level of personality. And with one of the systems we have in place called katas, katas allow you to train that like you would a very, very large, dangerous pet. The other thing we pushed on, and you'll see in some of the writing there, is the idea that we are dealing with a world where mecha fit. So we've done a lot more in terms of how people use these day to day. One of my classic moments is describing, we have a picture in the book where somebody is describing, how people are using suits to, for example, go out and do ranching, to go out and patrol areas, to go out and do police work, to basically apply it in every sense. What I love is the idea that, you can start off and you have literally a classic kid who steals mom's mecha, paints it in a bright color, steals a couple really large autocannon and goes out to hunt gunbark or something. Kind of getting a larger, holistic mecha all fit in. So we have all the bits. What we're waiting for right now is, like I said, between all of our overload, we now have to basically go through and do the editing cleanup, and get everything put together. What we want to do is basically send it out digitally with everything else, and at that point we'll also be able to send out and do the solid book, which we're making arrangements to get printed out. So it is moving. Believe me, nobody wants this puppy wrapped up faster than I do. So we, among other things, if I can get a hold of the mecha in a little bit, I also want to show you guys some of the new stuff we're doing in terms of a bestiary, which we're also developing right now. And when you got a world full of giant robots, you want that world full of giant robots to have things to fight that aren't just other giant robots. So we really expanded on what the critters were. And since I'm an amateur paleontologist, one thing I did was I expanded based on known science. So think of Algol as basically being living in Jurassic Park, and there aren't a whole heck of a lot of fences. And the stuff you're dealing with, some of it is even bigger than Jurassic Park. Gigafauna are in the low Godzilla scale. Oh, okay, did it just stick up again?
One of the files is corrupted.
Oh, great.
Yeah, the Excalibur.
Oh, which is a shame because it's a great suit.
Is
Okay.
there a rapier in there?
Yeah, the rapier's in there. What we can do is we can go through there. I was hoping we'd be able to get a monitor set up. We haven't been able to do that. But yeah, basically, we've got a wide variety of civilians and others, and some of the suits, kind of pass it around. You can see that difference between the various types. Along the military aspects, we've been trying for a particular distinct feeling between different types of suits. For example, you notice that the suits that are designed for the Kargan Empire are bright. They are much more almost personalized, flying circus kind of deadly suits, which fits the circus of death. But suits that are being designed and developed for the Alarans are much more straightforward. They're almost kind of a World War II carrier feel as well. So we've been trying to carry that across so that you have a distinct feeling of what works and what doesn't work,
Okay.
what each side has. And this kind of gives you an idea. The same suit can be very, very different depending on who's looking at it and who's running.
That's my friend.
Your friend. Yep. So you can also see we're doing a lot with, in terms of those designs, with civilian designs as well. This is, for example, a Kargan kind of heavy use exploratory out on the terrain perimeter and so forth like that, whereas this is much more like an interior city design that would be used for law enforcement or shipping, whatever. But then you move up to really, really heavy-duty big stuff as well. So the idea is to basically get a feeling of different kinds of suits and different contexts for suits. Okay, so give me a second here. And the other thing we're messing with is we added, because we had this lag time while we got things put together and we're kind of editing this, we started putting together a bestiary of critters and how they worked. So you're going to find, if you're curious, some of the stuff is appearing in the book in a much cleaner form, but why the animals work, why they're so big, why they're lethal. You know, they're not just teeth, they're thought-out teeth. For example, Algolian animals run in two basic gigafauna forms. One is multiple-limbed, big, solid, with big, ugly teeth. The other is a gracile form that has more things like multiple heads, chemically generated biological laser weapons, and other types of things, and a really, really large host of animals that spin off that and give you some really, really twisted design. So I'm going to kind of drop this to you guys.
You know, you are missing one important feature off that. You're missing my
We got your pig. Jay, get up here. Be useful.
All right, I'll stop sitting in the back.
Yeah, well, dude, you know, you work here, so, you know, you actually don't get to snipe. Okay, so, you know, take a look at some of the critters and what we're doing with that. Okay? So, in short, we added things because we had to catch up. We cleaned up things. We learned the hard way. One of the reasons that I made a point of offering everybody a chance to opt out was specifically because we knew this was going to take a lot more time. You know, I looked at it at a certain point and said, no, we are not going to be able to do this in a timely fashion, so people should have the right to say, yeah, I need to get my, you know, money back and go do things other with it. And we appreciate the fact that you hung around, and we are going to deliver this sucker. And like I said, the goal is that we actually get books back by the end of October. Physical books.
Otherwise, I'll fly out to Seattle and personally make sure it happens.
Yeah, right. I can't get you to show up for work.
I'll be on your doorstep. Dude,
Yeah.
it's October.
Okay. So, I'm going to open up to people yelling, throwing things at me and so forth like that.
Keep it civil. Please and
Okay.
thank you.
How easy will it be in this edition to use your own setting if you want to do that?
Run it by me one more time again. How?
If you want to use your own setting rather
Oh, you want to build your own designs? Right.
with do your own world setting rather than
Building your own setting.
Build your own setting. Mekton Zeta is designed for doing more of your own setting, and it doesn't go away. This was intended to be an extension of that capability. And so what we've done is a lot of what's in Zero has been to make it more approachable for more people to be able to just get in and play. I mean, come on. Most of us know that if you want to really get serious in Mekton Zeta Plus, you better have calculus. It's pretty serious. And we like to think of it, that's the elder game. That's for the people who really want to go get out there, mech bash, and build. But we also wanted to have new people try it, and we wanted to make games when you guys had to start off, where you didn't have to go spend 2 days building all the suits that were going to go out. So what we did do is we used Mekton Zeta as a jumping off point. All the suits there that you'll see that we've already pre-designed are actually pre-set up and done with their Mekton Zeta stats as well. So you can go back and forth pretty seamlessly. We have always had that capability. We just decided to employ it this time because we wanted a game where people could concentrate more on role playing. We wanted it to be, we had a really good battle system. What we wanted now was also a more solid role playing system. So it's actually, if you want to build your own stuff, or even take some of the stuff out of Zeta and Zero and move them back and forth, it's pretty easy to do it. Questions?
I have a couple questions from
Yeah.
online. Will the
We have an
Kickstarter?
online group?
No, I asked people
That's cool.
to if they had any questions they'd like me to ask in the Kickstarter page. Will the Kickstarter be getting regular scheduled updates again?
Yes. One of the problems we have now is that the Kickstarter doesn't have a lot to update. Basically, what we got is, it's being edited. Yeah, we changed some stuff. We fixed some stuff. Unfortunately, one of the problems, and Kickstarters tend to amplify this, and we didn't really think of at the time, is when you go just get something from somebody who isn't connected in that way, the project shows up. And so you don't get to see all the boring stuff that happens along the way. Mm-hmm. So, for example, editing the stuff and going back and forth and finding everything eats up a couple, to 3, sometimes up to 4 if you have to go correct all the numbers, months to go do that.
Yeah, I mean, typo hunting itself is like 5 drafts.
And our overworked editor, Fran, is going through and redoing it. We also have to be very careful in the case with Zero rather, because Zero was built on a much older platform, which has a tendency to be unstable. I'll tell you a horror story. I got some corrects in on the first chapter, which is about the old empire, from Fran, and I was making changes before I left and putting those corrects in. And one piece of leftover type from when we had done Deja Vu was still there. Well, Deja Vu was unstable. We didn't know that when we laid it out. And so it would go through, you'd make changes in the file, and then the file would corrupt, crash, and be gone. Literally. So we're talking 12 months into it, this particular file, the front end of the book, basically corrupted and crashed. But luckily I had at that point backups on backups on backups on backups. We have multiple versions, the last hope, the last best hope, the last best hope 2, et cetera, just for that contingency. But one reason we haven't had a lot of updates is, to be really honest, there isn't a lot on a weekly basis to say other than, we can keep coming going, yeah, we're editing, here's some pictures. We would like to show more of the book at times, but to be honest, everybody's pretty much seen what we've got, what we're building. And, if we could give it to you, correctless, I'm not sure you'd want that because I'm not really a great speller, then, you would have that and it still would be edited and getting beaten up on because that's just kind of the long, boring process. It's the part I don't like, but I do it because otherwise I get people like Fran, who joined us because of that, writing me and saying, did you know that, way the hell back here in this particular module, you said this, and there was a page XXX in there? Yeah. Why didn't you get that? Because we didn't edit enough. So we're beating it to death to make sure it's clean. And there's not a lot to say when you're doing that, just frankly. One of the things I was curious about is I would love to do more of the design doc stuff for why we're doing what we're doing. But we weren't certain whether that was the place to do it in a Kickstarter. We thought maybe people would go, yeah, well, we don't want to hear that. How many people would be interested in finding out why and what we're doing in terms of just design theory? My son's doing that with Witcher right now. And a lot of people were, really interested, like, we did this because of this. I would really like to tell people a lot more about, things like why the mecha are sentient or pseudo-sentient and why they have stats and personalities and things like that. So, show of hands, who wants to see that? Because I'll go home and start putting it out, man. I love doing that. Okay, so when I get back, I'll start doing developer diary stuff on there while we're waiting for the editing to finish. And Fran hates me. Fran does hate me right now. I dropped that, and then midway through, we got stuff from CDPR, and we had to suddenly redo Witcher as well. So she's just going, I have no life.
Yeah, and I think I think on the side of, yeah, developer diaries are good, but I think also just, like, as long as there's semi-regular updates that are just something as simple as we're waiting for editing, like, one of the things is...
Are you guys cool with that?
Yeah.
Kieran's
I-
going,
so-
Kieran's saying they're gonna kill me, man.
So one of the things is, like, I've spent 5 years working in customer support.
Mhm.
People get angrier if you don't say anything than if you say, sorry, this is taking longer than I've expected. Because
Okay.
at least they know that you're still thinking about them and you're still working on
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, we're thinking about it.
And I would say from my experience with all the other RPGs is they generally, even if it is, this is where we're at,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes here's the preview chapters, it might be in Word format, but hey, start looking at them, get 10,000 more eyeballs on it and help spot things. And that usually...
You guys just said looking at unedited stuff. Yeah, we can post some of it. Remember, our big problem right now is the format we have it in is really, really hard to post. We'd like to post, like, some of the stuff I'm giving you guys now, I'm giving it to you because I can't post it on Kickstarter, the way it's designed now. I can't even post it effectively. We kicked around the idea of maybe putting it on drive-through instead, but we haven't been able to work something that is acceptable to
I mean, I've seen them put it through BackerKit. What Diffus uses basically, sorry, I can't remember what they use now.
But you hit it.
I mean, some of them just post it up like on OneDrive or Google Drive for people to access with a special link for Kickstarter backers.
We tried that, and there were a lot of problems with that. A lot of people couldn't get into it that way. But what I will do is, on our site, I'll post developer diary stuff, and then I'll put Kickstarter stuff out here and post it, so we can get it. But hopefully we get editing done fairly soon, and then, nothing blows up, and we get the damn thing out the door. Because I'm already starting to figure out what we're going to do for the next project in it. We're pretty excited about it. Mark and I, and occasionally Jay when he wakes up from his stupor, we basically talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
I can nag you almost every month.
He is. He's a nag.
Give me shit to do so
I wish I could, but you can't edit.
All
You
the
can't
time.
edit.
When I was doing the Kickstarter
You
stuff
can't
with you
edit.
guys, it was, I
You
can
can't
edit. I have
edit.
a
You
master's
can't
degree
edit.
in editing, in writing. And you guys, I will argue with you later. I'll get you
We'll
a
argue.
dinner time.
We'll get you dinner. We'll get you dinner. Okay.
Next
So,
question.
other questions?
Okay, I got another one online.
Okay. This is great.
What was the reason for the newest wave of silence?
Basically, we got caught up in trying to get the Witcher stuff and getting a whole bunch of the editing stuff.
Okay.
We got editing halfway through, actually about a third of the way through, and started putting in corrects, and then Witcher stuff came in, so we got swamped. And to be honest, we kicked it around, and the feeling was you probably would not be happy. We just said, we're still editing, and that was all we really had to say. I advocated for the basic idea of maybe doing developer diaries, and wanted to, at this convention group, one of the things I wanted to do was ask you guys, what would you like to see us do, in lieu of saying, yeah, we're still editing. Because that we figured that was kind of boring.
Gentleman in the back with the glasses and hat.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. So, with Mekton Zero, it's clear if you look at the materials, like the aesthetic presentation of it is the real robot genre. Gundam, Macross, that's
Right.
when you look at it and you see that.
Mhm.
And that's what pulled me to Mekton Zero at that time, because, Battletech was a bit too plotting, and Robotech wasn't quite precise enough. So, like, if I look at Mekton Zero, is there any kind of aesthetic presentation that is gonna help me identify it with something, or is this like...
It's going to be closer to the real world robot genre. A perfect model you would look at is Pat Labor.
Oh, okay, all right.
We're looking at Pat Labor. One of our other writers and people involved, she's another mecha head, and we talked a long time. We wanted to have that kind of real world robots, and I mean real world, what they do on a day-to-day basis, because it always seemed to me really stupid that only Amuro Ray and Shaw Aznavour kind of had giant war robots. You could have had people out there building the damn colonies, going to be doing all kinds of things, but instead they were always fighting. And I said, what else can you do? If I owned a giant robot, I think of 100 things I'd do,
Well, citing Pat Labor definitely helps, because now it gives me a really strong
It's
idea.
very, it's very, very Pat Labor with some elements of, let's say, Appleseed,
Okay.
But we were aiming, or some of the most recent Macross stuff like Macross Delta,
So, in line with that, is it gonna have like sort of an anime and manga type aesthetic, or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you looked at things we were passing around for characters.
I did not see the character
Ah.
book.
There's the characters. This is a version I stripped off the page stuff a bit, but basically, yeah, it is very, very, I mean, you were playing anime archetypes
Okay.
throughout. That's the goal. You play, you know, I am a mecha hero, for example, and this is how I operate. The other thing we have in there is, you may have noticed that kind of weird-looking stat box thing with the stripes. That's called a castling chart, and it is something I've been specifically for this game. I really loathe it when I start to have a character, and I'm saying, you know, I'm going to have a mecha jock. It's going to be a powerful, cool dude, you know, knows how to fly and all that, and I get my numbers suck. So what I did was worked out a system where you could roll a single die or a group of dice off the table, and you would get a constructed character that was best optimal, not super, but best optional for that particular type of character. So if you're going to be doing a mecha jock, it was going to be a different stat profile, and consistently that way, as opposed to the stat profile for a spy or an idol singer. And that was because we wanted people not just to say, oh, I'm going to play an idol, but be able to play a really good idol and make it fit from the start. So you're pointing out people here. Next.
Yeah, you mentioned Pat Labor and very sort of real robot aesthetic. How easy would it be to do a super robot type game with this system?
Actually, it's kind of an interesting thing, because one of the things that is in Zero is the idea that we have gone through several ages of giant robots. And you'll see that in the history section. We talk about the fact that the first colonists on Algol landed, and they had giant robots. They had the classic super robots. They had basically robots that were around a 300-foot range and fought basically Agandi battle cruisers. They were monsters. But not many of them survived the landing on the planet. Not many of them survived the last battle of the Agandi, and you've had 900 years pass. So then we went to a second phase where they were excuse me?
No, as that's how they're pronounced. I was
Oh, the
pronouncing it
Agandi.
Agrendi.
No, it's the Agandi.
I thought it was a Gendi.
Yeah, it's a Agandi, let me tell you. So at any rate, I'll put that in the developer notes. So yeah, basically then we went to a phase historically where they were reconditioned versions of these done by people who didn't understand entirely what they were doing. So they became legacy, and they became a little, let's say, going down from 5-star stories down to Elgaim, going down to I'd say Panzerwolf Galleon, for example. You familiar with that one?
Yeah.
You know, where it's, we have these 1,000-year-old robots. We have no idea exactly how they run, but we can kind of keep them running because the priests say to do this. The next version that we went down to became, as time went on, they became more and more real robots. So you will actually, for example, the Excalibur is pretty much a super robot genre, super robot. But it's an incredible rarity that's sitting in a temple in Myria, and people worship it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Super Robot Wars video games, but
Yes.
think of doing a mechanic like the Fashion or Spirit points from that?
No, we're not going to, because we're trying to move. Okay, the problem with that kind of thing, we have elements that are like that in the old Imperial Mecha, but we're trying to move away from that because that's not something you can use in everyday situations. Your neighbor being able to size shield blast you doesn't fit in really well to what a day-to-day existence with a 40-foot tall mecha is actually like. So at a certain point, if we stay to reality, we kind of have to keep some of those things out. Now, that's not to say that at some point, because we talk about things like that in the Old Empire in the book, that you're not going to encounter stuff maybe. There's a lot of mysteries we buried in the alcohol.
Psionic, sort of, if you're familiar with the Super Robot, sort of characters have like a point pool that they can
Right.
use to activate ability.
That's actually built in. That's
Right.
actually built in. Characters have, depending on the type, certain point pools to be able to do feats and things like that are built into your character for your person development as well. You got a question?
Yeah. Do the Mektons have a variety of interface types, like some of the joysticks and whatnot, or do they have like regular links?
Because we are right now in this time period keeping it a fairly realistic level,
Yeah.
what they have is a thing called a C key, which is basically a trigger and recording device for what you do with the suit. One of the cool things you do is when you get your suit, you teach it what are called katas. And katas are things you can do. For example, you can go grab your girlfriend if she's falling from the building, but unless you actually learn the girlfriend grab kata, you have a higher chance of squishing the daylights out of it. Yeah, my personal favorite was always one called the running death pass we have, where the two mechas start and they run across the field at each other with their beam sabers drawn, and it's ching, frozen, bam. Well, that's hard to do in a mechanistic system where you're just rolling. So we designed katas to work like that, where they're like special move combinations. We have, for example, one which is gesture, where you can teach your suit how to do stupid things. Like, I had a guy in a playtest who, taught his suit how to stand around looking negligent and facepalm. And he spent, because katas depend on how smart your suit is. You notice that the suits that we've had all have stats, and those stats include things like how smart it is, reactivity and empathy and so forth like that. So if you have a fairly smart suit, you can teach it to stand around going, beep, beep, beep. It's waiting, it's pissed.
How smart can the Mektons get?
Mektons are about, at the brightest, a fairly dumb horse. But we actually did some research on it. We were looking at like dragons and things like that and going, dragons are either people in, big furry, or big scaly skins, or they're kind of large brute force things that don't have to be all that smart. So when we started messing, we said, we need something about as bright as if I were riding a T-Rex. So we created Mektons to basically be smart to learn dumb tricks. To learn how to do certain things like catch your girlfriend without smashing her, or to, open a door with your 10-foot long finger, things like that.
But you're not going to get anything like, this is backup battle unit data, which let control instructions.
No. The idea was to keep a lot of the elements of driving, because as many years ago, Tamino talked about the idea with Gundam that what you had was a kid with a driving fantasy. It was like having a car. You could get in it, drive it, and you and I, we all know that you couldn't just jump in a giant war machine 50 feet tall and run around in it. So Mektons have to drive like cars, and they have to basically not have true personalities, because then it would say, what are you doing in my cockpit, dude? Really? You're not my superhero driver. So what you have to have is a fine balance, which I think we've achieved in Zero, where the suit is smart enough to, for example, as we had in one of the games last night, a fumble, the suit fell over and was lying there in the mud, thrashing to get up, and it wasn't smart enough to know how to do it itself. He had to get it and pilot it, but it lay there on its back going,
Yeah, that was me.
yeah, okay, sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you. So we wanted to get a sense that you had to manhandle and deal with it, but it wasn't so dumb that it was an insensate thing. We kind of want you to care about it.
All right,
Yeah.
Dave,
Dave.
can I rotate back to the Kickstarter question and rotate right back to you?
Okay. Having been an editor, I have to make the note that the grammar's not mine. Mentions of material that couldn't fit in the book was mentioned and might be released as supplements. Has that option changed?
It actually has changed a bit. We had a lot more about the old empire, and the book was 360-something pages, which was spec for 240.
Yeah.
So we cut down a bunch of the old empire stuff so we could get more of how the mecha operated, what was going on in the cities, what the various cultures were doing. So that was stuff that is eventually going to come back. One of the things that I've been aiming to do is to have kind of an ongoing mystery built into Zero, because it is more of a story. And for example, we now have a bit more on the ruins and the mystery of what happened to the first Imperial survey group that came and built the Stargate. People who are familiar with Algol from Mekton Zeta may have remembered from, you know, the longer books we did, that there was an abandoned Stargate. Nobody knows what happened. We kind of tell you how to find out this time, and you know what happened to the people there.
All right. Okay, so one of the nice things about Mekton Zeta's combat system was sort of this meta notion that, and you guys may not have been aiming for this, you may not have been aware of it, or maybe you were, but like, the combat system in Mekton Zeta, it's technical, but it's not ungraspable. It's not impenetrable. Like,
Yeah.
you really felt like this, you were, you know, the combat sort of, in a meta sense, was like this notion that you're piloting these sophisticated military vehicles.
Right.
So the combat was kind of technical, but again, not impenetrable, not too dense to pick up and play with. This sounds, since the robots are more part of people's everyday lives, getting in a car and driving it would be a lot easier for me than getting in a fighter jet and going into combat with it. I'm wondering if the combat system in Mekton Zero is going to sort of reflect the everyday use and how that's going to, you know, is there a meta element to that?
Yeah, actually, there is, and that was part of the plan, and I'll tell you why. Let me yank out something. This is what your lifeline. You remember we had dice, and people wondered, why do we have dice? Well, what we did was we actually adapted. I started working on, if for some of you might remember, the Mekton movie system.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Mekton movie system needed tweaking because it was a little too deadly. You were designing it to pop out, you know, hordes of guys coming at you. So I made a developmental version of it that basically was real high on speed and understandability. And for damage and so forth, instead of going through, yeah, I knocked down 2 points of armor here and 2 points there and so forth like that, and then I figured out how much I did. We went over to the SI system, the structural integrity system, which integrated both your armor and your ability to take damage. And we also went into strategic hit locations so that now if you got hit and it punched through, stuff would happen. One of the cool parts about the dice doing that was that each of the dice is color-coded, okay? And the color codes actually have meaning built into them, okay? So, for example, if I get hit with something as a basic damage, I'm running gray. So I look at it and I go, oh, okay, I took a cockpit breach in this, and that damage and where I fit in the table is based on a roll that works against the amount of damage done, okay? However, one of the cool things that I really liked and wanted to modify in this system was you have what's called escalation. So you're rolling, and it's not a big thing, but if you get far enough, for example, that escalates to yellow. And suddenly what was, yeah, this wasn't really good, suddenly becomes, yeah, I now have a power plant hit because I moved up to a higher level of damage. And that's bad. And then maybe I pull another escalation, and I can now move up to a higher level of damage there. So that power plant hit might be twice as bad. So the idea between both the dice and the table, which integrates the same way, is that I wanted combat to happen rapidly and have outcomes happen that were about systems as opposed to just points. When you do it with points, you go, yeah, I have 14 points left. If you do it by most of my structural integrity is being torn apart, and I've lost my jump jets, and I've lost the capacity for my main sensors, but I do have backup, it now becomes something that is a real thing that you're dealing with. It's not like points on a board. And that's what we've done with the combat system, is to simplify it down to really hitting, damaging, and wiping systems, wiping structure, and it's relatively difficult to actually get killed in the game. You know, you can bail out a lot of times when you see it coming. But at the same time, your suit goes down, and your suit, you may have spent hours of game time building up an entire list of katas and trained your suit, and you happen to have a really smart mauler, and it just got blown out from underneath you, and you lost all that training, you lost all that background, you lost that personality stuff, and yeah, you're alive with 4 hits, and that's it. So I wanted, one of the big goals in doing Zero, one big thing driving how I wanted to do it, was to get the idea that this was about real parts, real systems, not numbers. Yeah.
So you're just talking about bailing from the vacuum and having to get a new one that might be different. Is the emergency ejection in Zero as magical as the emergency ejection from Zeta?
It's kind of. Emergency ejection in Zeta, you get out, but this can also...
It's like you get to give like your last...
Yes.
You get to say something and there are
Yes.
cherry blossoms.
Yes, you do actually have all the cherry blossoms and everything else like that. Because remember, we're doing an anime game. We're not exactly doing a walking tank game. And that's one of the things that I've always felt Mekton should do really well, is it needs to feel like it's an anime show. And one of the things we were able, by cutting back on the old Empire stuff, to do was add in a bunch of stuff about running it as an anime show. That's why, for example, you have 20 different archetypes, but there are another 15 that are only the referee's access. Basically ones that, as the person running it, you have access to things like, a certain kind of tormented hero or the sadistic villain. And, you can pull those guys up and bring them in as part of your cast. The idea was to really create an anime show. And that meant, for example, if you were hit, you wanted to have, sparks flying, and you wanted to see something go on and say, you have lost your optics, everything went black, and you're looking through a periscope. You also wanted to have a sense that drama was part of it. That, you didn't want to just, okay, you're dead. You want to have, you eject, you have a half a point left, and then you die. And we wanted you to see your girlfriend before you went, because that's what happens. How many times have you seen, a sleet of hail going in and blowing somebody up, and they go, before the go, like, Sakura. That's part of the genre. It's not a question of real robots versus fantasy or super robots. It's a question of how anime handles the fact that you're driving a giant walking tank. You're not. You're driving a giant robot, and it's cooler that way.
David, what was the last one?
It's kind of connected to the last one, which is, what was the final decision on whether the Bandari section that was in the book then taken out, if it was put back in or taken out?
It was taken out.
Okay.
It was not as, the problem with the Bandari section was we have a fair amount still in there because we have to explain how the colony worked, what happened with the Vengeance Star, and the battle for the Empire. But we had, for example, an entire large list of planets that had been in the old Empire that we took out. Because while it's cool to know that they were there, and we had these beautiful maps of them and everything, these 3D pictures and the whole 9 yards, and we worked out some new techniques for it. But we went, it's going to be a while till they ever get back to the Empire. So we're going to have to shine that, and that will happen later. So that allowed us then to get more referee stuff and a lot more about something which was near and dear to my heart, what it was like to have giant robots around in your community, in your situation, to get up in the morning and the garbage men are walking around and they're, 12 feet tall and they're carrying enormous bins. They put down a bin and they do garbage man stuff that you would have seen in 1950, only instead of a truck, it's, scoop garbage. I love the idea of two mecha walking up with a telephone pole on their shoulders, and one of them digs a hole, the other one looks bored holding up the thing, and they get one guy and he shoves it in the 30-foot long pole, and the mecha holds up the pole, and the other guy puts the dirt in and mashes it down, and then they go walking away while the scene is repeated over and over again. I just love that idea. It's so insane. So, other questions?
Is that it for the Kickstarter? Or you go?
Yeah.
Well, this one from me.
By the way, I really appreciate you doing that. That's great.
Oh, glad to help out.
We are learning a lot of stuff too. Yeah.
You mentioned that the physical books were ready by late October.
That's the plan. Is we basically have a wrap up and on editing, and there's some things I want to add in.
Okay.
It kind of depends. My production manager is now talking to some guys in Hong Kong about the long-term version. One of the things that has changed, which I should also bring up to you guys, is doing 600 books is not that hard, and we can turn that very easily. We do it on our own machine.
Yeah.
So we weren't too worried about that. But distribution and the outside world said, hey, we really want to see this. We've been hearing about it. So we then had to figure out, like, okay, is it better for us to print them, larger scale, or do we want to, hold off? Basically it became a question of matching those larger scales. Just like when we originally figured we'd do the figures, we're thinking, what do we got to do? 5,000 figures, it's not too bad. I just finished looking at bids for 10 and 20,000 figures. So one of the things we kind of had, at the time, we hadn't been thinking about really getting the company full speed, and distribution went, oh, you're doing new Mekton stuff. Yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah, we're in for it. And we suddenly went, okay, we have to reassess that. So getting it printed on a short term, what we are considering doing is going through some short-term printers we know so that you guys get it first.
Okay.
And then when we do a mass market edition, our hope, that's why we can do those short turnaround times. And when we do a mass market, we may, change a few things. There's some things I'm probably going to put in your version that won't actually show up in mass market, because it actually will be more cost effective to ship some of those things in separate things, separate packages.
Okay. So would it be possible for us to get PDF
you're gonna
beforehand?
Get PDFs early, yeah.
Okay.
PDF, before, when we get it ready to go to the printers, you guys get the PDF.
Okay.
It's just like, when we finish the editing on the Adventures, which is also being done, you're going to get all those PDFs done. What will happen is you guys will all get links going to drive-through, and you'll be able to download it. And it'll be just automatic. You can, get it. You'll have a key. Bam. Take it. Print it out. Physically printing it out takes a little longer. That's the thing. And partially, one of the problems we found out was we have all this stuff sitting around the warehouse right now, and we did the numbers when we calculated, the weight of the books and everything else like that. What we discovered was we couldn't afford to ship it all separately. It would just kill us. But, we can package it, and it's one reason why, the figures can be done the way they are, because we're not doing big blister pack systems and things like that for it. You're probably going to get it in kind of a nice, neat box, is what we're aiming for. Okay, anybody else got anything? Come on, guys. This is great, because I wanted to get everybody together in the same room so we all talk. Any more questions on the internet?
No, that was only one person had posted, but they posted a lot of questions.
Well, that's good. That's good. Tell them to post back.
Okay. Are there, is there any, how much explanation, if any, is there for the system around the planet itself?
Oh, that was another thing. We cut it back.
Yeah.
We had an entire galactic ephemeris of every single moon in the system.
Okay.
We had, we still do. I mean, it's somewhere in one of the computers.
You shut that door, please?
Door, please. Door, please. Thank you. Yeah, basically we had a whole ephemeris, every single moon in the system, all the suns, the asteroid belt. We built a whole lot of stuff, and we did these really, really great, image models of all the stuff. But what we realized was, while it's really cool, you guys really need to know more about what was happening on the ground. So we took that out and put more of it. That's the stuff that will end up going back into the planetary ephemeris. Basically, we're planning a bestiary now, which Mark and I have just spent a ridiculous amount of time, like about 2 weeks, working on just what critters are out there, from the smallest critters to the largest, and been having a good time. Hopefully you guys had a chance to look at some of the critters. And, we wanted you to see more about the world in the end. Are we at time?
We're out of time.
We're out of time, guys. Thank you for coming, and once again, thank you for cutting us the slack. We really do appreciate it. And